B2B lead generation, best practices for growth in 2025. B2B lead generation in 2025 is a strategy game. In 2025, B2B lead generation is no longer a simple volume play. It's a precision system. Buying cycles are longer, inboxes are noisier, and the teams that win are the ones that treat targeting, messaging, and follow-up like an operating discipline. That's why 69% of B2B companies plan to increase lead generation investment in the next year, even as competition for attention keeps rising. At SalesHive, we see the same pattern across industries. When pipeline slows down, most teams instinctively add tools, add SDRs, or add volume. But the real unlock usually sits upstream: an outdated ICP, shaky data, a one-channel approach, or weak handoffs that let good leads die in the gap between marketing and sales. Fixing those fundamentals is how you create predictable meetings without burning your brand or your domains. This guide breaks down what's working now across cold email, cold calling, and modern multi-channel cadences. We'll focus on practical choices you can implement, clarifying your buying committee map, building higher quality lists, layering intent signals into prioritization, and measuring SDR performance with benchmarks that actually reflect revenue outcomes. If you're evaluating a cold email agency, a cold calling agency, or a full outbound sales agency, these are the standards we'd use to vet the motion. Why pipeline gets harder: bigger committees, slower decisions, faster noise. The biggest structural change in B2B is that you're rarely selling to one decision maker anymore. Modern buying groups for meaningful purchases commonly involve 8 to 13 stakeholders, which means lead generation has to influence an account, not just a single contact. When teams keep targeting one title and hoping for a handoff, deals stall in internal review purgatory. At the same time, many organizations admit the basics are still broken. About 45% of B2B companies say generating enough leads is their biggest challenge, and 41% say they struggle to follow up quickly. Two problems that compound each other when speed to lead matters. If your first touch is late, generic, or misaligned with what the account is researching, the opportunity often disappears before sales gets a real at-bat. This is where a systems mindset matters more than working harder. Winning teams connect three things tightly: who they target, ICP and account selection, why they're reaching out, trigger-based relevance, and how they show up, coordinated email, calls, and LinkedIn outreach services. Done right, multi-channel outreach behaves like a flywheel. Every touch improves the next touch because the message and timing are consistent. Your ICP and buying committee map are the real lead gen levers. If we could force one action item for every team planning growth in 2025, it's an ICP refresh built from real wins. Pull your last 20 to 50 closed-won deals and look for patterns in firmographics, deal triggers, and what made the deal move internally. This is where you'll spot the segments that buy fast versus the ones that take forever, along with the roles that consistently champion or block the purchase. Once you've updated the ICP, map the buying committee so your outbound doesn't depend on luck. In accounts with 8 to 13 stakeholders, you need messaging that speaks differently to operators, technical evaluators, and economic buyers, while still telling one consistent story. When teams skip this step, they over-index on job titles, under-index on internal politics, and then blame SDRs for low response. A common mistake is treating list building as an afterthought, even though it's the substrate your entire motion runs on. In our experience, the best performing SDR agencies and sales development agency teams invest in list hygiene and enrichment the same way they invest in reps. If you're using B2B list building services or list building services in-house, the goal is the same: reduce bounces, reduce mistargeting, and ensure every contact is the right person at the right account at the right time. Build a tight multi-channel cadence, not more activity. In 2025, single-channel outbound is usually a self-imposed ceiling. Multi-channel outreach, email plus phone plus social, can reduce cost per lead by about 31% compared to single-channel efforts, largely because each channel increases the effectiveness of the others. A call becomes warmer after a relevant email, and an email becomes more credible after a professional voicemail and a clean LinkedIn touch. A practical way to implement this is to build one gold standard sequence per core persona, then scale only after it works. We typically recommend a 12 to 15 touch cadence over 3 to 4 weeks, mixing short emails, focused call blocks, and a small number of social touches that reinforce the same point of view. The mistake teams make is adding touches without a strategy: more steps, more templates, more noise, without improving relevance. When you're choosing between building in-house versus working with a B2B sales agency or outsourced sales team, this is a key litmus test. Can the motion run as one coordinated system across channels? Many cold calling companies can dial, and many email tools can send, but the results come from orchestration. That's what separates generic sales outsourcing from a predictable outbound sales agency model. The best outbound teams don't do more. They target fewer accounts, say the right thing, and follow up like professionals across multiple channels. Cold email in 2025, micro campaigns, personalization, and clear CTAs. Cold email still works, but averages hide the truth. Typical cold email response rates sit around 3 to 4.1%, while top quartile campaigns can exceed 20% when targeting and personalization are dialed in. That gap is why send more is the wrong default. Quality and relevance are the only sustainable levers. Meetings matter more than replies, so we anchor expectations to conversion benchmarks, not vanity metrics. Many 2025 benchmarks show cold email converts roughly 2 to 5% of recipients into booked calls or deals when executed well, with B2B SaaS sometimes pushing higher under strong conditions. If you're consistently below that range, the usual culprits are weak ICP fit, generic first lines, or deliverability issues created by unverified data. This is where a strong cold email agency approach looks like a product, not a blast. Tight segmentation, one persona per sequence, and personalization that supports the message instead of distracting from it. At SalesHive, our email motion pairs solid base templates with AI-assisted personalization, so each message reads like it was written for that recipient, without asking SDRs to hand research hundreds of accounts. The biggest mistake we see is personalization theater, where emails mention a random detail but never connected to a business problem or outcome. Cold calling still wins when it's coordinated and well-timed. B2B cold calling isn't dead. Bad cold calling is. In a world where inboxes are saturated and committees are large, live conversations can accelerate trust, uncover the real stakeholders, and clarify timelines faster than email alone. That's why teams still invest in B2B cold calling services and specialized cold callers, especially when those calls are paired with relevant email context. The difference between spam dialing and a modern cold calling team is preparation and timing. Call blocks should be aimed at accounts that have shown a trigger, intent signals, hiring spikes, new leadership, tech changes, or even repeated email opens, so the rep has a real reason to reach out today. When teams don't use triggers, calls become interruptive. When they do, calls feel timely and helpful. If you're evaluating cold calling services, the key questions are operational. Can the team log clean notes, map stakeholders, and feed learnings back into messaging quickly? The common mistake is treating calling as a separate lane from email and LinkedIn, which creates contradictory narratives and messy follow-up. A well-run sales agency motion treats calling as the fast feedback loop that improves the entire outbound system. Metrics that matter: SLAs, meeting benchmarks, and weekly feedback loops. If you can't measure your outbound system, you can't improve it. A widely cited benchmark for a fully ramped SDR is around 19 meetings set per month. But the number only matters if your qualification standards are clear. When teams chase meeting volume without MQL-SQL alignment, AEs reject meetings, marketing blames sales, and leadership loses trust in the channel. The fastest operational upgrade is a documented lead SLA that both sales and marketing agree to. Set explicit definitions for MQL and SQL, define what disqualifies a lead, and commit to response time targets so hot leads don't go cold. This directly addresses the reality that 41% of teams struggle to follow up quickly, an avoidable leak that can destroy pipeline efficiency. From there, run a 30-minute weekly SDR review that focuses on learning, not blame. Track inputs: email sent, call connects, LinkedIn touches; outputs: replies, conversations, meetings; and downstream results: show rate, opportunities created. The best SDR agency teams treat this as continuous improvement. Every week you refine lists, tighten messaging, and adjust the cadence based on what's actually converting. Advanced levers: intent signals and prioritization that moves pipeline faster. Intent and behavioral signals are no longer nice to have in outbound. They're how you decide who gets attention first. When 93% of B2B marketers report higher conversion rates using intent data, it's a clear sign that timing and relevance outperform brute force. Even better, 82% say sales converts intent-based leads faster, which is exactly what you want when leadership is pushing for near-term pipeline impact. You don't need a complex stack to use intent well. Start by choosing 1 or 2 topics that map directly to your product's value. Then prioritize accounts showing active research, repeated visits to relevant pages, or intent-like activity, such as hiring for related roles. The common mistake is adding intent data and then still running the same generic sequences. Signals should change who you target, the message you use, and how quickly you follow up. Operationally, intent is also a way to keep your team focused. It helps SDRs spend call blocks on accounts most likely to pick up and respond, and it helps marketing stop overscoring low-fit leads. Whether you hire SDRs internally or partner with an outbound sales agency, intent-driven prioritization is one of the most reliable ways to improve efficiency without increasing volume. Build versus outsource: how to choose the right growth model in 2025. Building an internal SDR org can work, but many teams underestimate the true cost: recruiting, ramp time, management overhead, tooling, and constant list and deliverability maintenance. Sales outsourcing can be more predictable when you need pipeline quickly, especially if you're expanding into a new segment or region. The best approach is rarely all in-house or all outsourced, but a deliberate split based on what you want to control versus what you want to accelerate. At SalesHive, we sit in the center of the multi-channel model described throughout this guide. Coordinated cold email, B2B cold calling, and list building under one system. Our SDR pods, US-based and Philippines-based, run targeted campaigns against a defined ICP, and our platform ties together calls, emails, and meetings so performance is measurable and improvable. Since 2016, we've booked 100,000 plus meetings for 1,500 plus B2B clients, which is why teams evaluating an outsourced sales team often compare our delivery to other SDR agencies, cold calling companies, and B2B sales outsourcing providers. Your next step should be a controlled pilot, not a full-scale bet. Choose one core persona, run a tightly defined multi-channel sequence on a clean 100 to 200 contact test set, and evaluate meetings, show rate, and opportunity creation, not just opens and clicks. If you need help executing, a specialized sales development agency or SDR agency can compress the timeline. But the system still has to be yours. Crisp ICP, clear SLAs, honest benchmarks, and weekly iteration based on data.